2-1 and Google Hangouts reliably gets us on the air. Sam and Brent here. It is the local support kickoff meeting. Here we are. We'll see if others will join us. I guess that I think I've got a better plan in my mind for website one meetings where we basically say, right, are there any tickets that people want to vote on? I guess sensibly we do that here, although my idea of doing these weekly is that there's like one is retrospective. Is there anything that looking back over the last week that we need to change, and then looking at tickets. Brent, anything on your mind about how the project is going and running that could do with changing and tinkering?
It's not clear to me what's the priorities. I guess that's one thing. I mean, I've just been picking things that I can do, but that might not be the best thing.
Sure.
I think one thing with the tickets as well, it would be good to try and get more information on them. I think a lot of them at the moment are just a couple of sentences at most. And I guess that will help people, understand what each ticket is. But generally, and now I've read the contributing instructions, I'll get that right next time.
Good show. Yeah, no, that's great feedback, actually. Let's bring up the board. There are, and then and the heads up, so I can be seen. Come here, heads up. Here we are. Yay. Yes. So that's. I think that definitely there's room for improvement in the tickets. Like when I started, like every ticket had like a kind of a cucumber style, or the Connextra style story in it. And as time's gone on, and like 5 years later, and I'm like, a couple of keywords. So absolutely, that could be improved. I mean, there's an implied priority, which is that things towards the top of the backlog are higher priority than the things at the bottom of the backlog, and the ice boxes in random order.
Okay. Yep.
Was that is that not something I'd mentioned already?
You may have done. Yeah.
Well, I may not have done. I mean,
I can't recall. If
not to worry. Yeah. I'm also aware that I'm explaining. This is one of the difficulties is that I'm explaining things to different people, and I don't remember who I've explained what to. Of course, the solution to part of that is to try and write it all down, but then you've got to get everybody to read the things. The document that I refer to, and maybe it's in the wrong place, that partly talks about this is this one.
Right. Okay.
Which maybe we should link to from somewhere else. I'm not sure. But I think that there is also there's a bigger issue here in that I think the client themselves is kind of the whole of the project is sort of an exploratory thing. So, what's kind of funny about it at the top level is I'm still not really sure like what the needs of the end users are. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, I do. Yeah.
And it's sort of like we're working with so Voluntary Action Harrow Cooperative are an intermediate group, and they're trying to support the whole of the non-profit sector in Harrow, which consists of lots and lots of different charities and organizations of different sizes, who all have different needs and this, that, and the other, and everybody they want volunteers and this, that, and the other. And my interaction with the client almost always is just an interaction with the client, and the client is kind of guessing. Or I mean, not just guessing because they know the sector, but they're trying to anticipate what other people in the area will appreciate and use.
But so I guess from their point of view, who do they see as their users though? The other organisations who are using their site to, publish their opportunities, or the people, who are going to volunteer, I guess.
Well, and I think the way the site started is initially it was a directory, and I think that what the client was sort of saying was, oh look, there are small charities and non-profits out there that don't have much of a presence. They can't necessarily afford a web page, but if there was up-to-date contact information for that group, that would help them find each other. I mean, I think they want to, help put the different groups in contact and stay in contact with all of them. So they were sort of seeing, something where it would be easy for people to update their information would be really valuable. I think what they found was that then people were just not that interested in going to a place that was a directory, and like they're busy doing, like, trying to serve their their own user groups, trying to fill in the forms that they have to fill in for the government and their funders, and there was not much. I mean, we've got a whole framework in here for like inviting people in and this, that, and the other, and of the lots of people invited, only a relatively small number would come in and update things. Oh, we can see actually somebody there has updated themselves recently. Oh, actually, these guys. Yeah, so they're and this is actually one of the groups that I've been out to, and sort of shown the system. I mean, I have this idea actually that I should go and see a different charity in Harrow each week and kind of go out and talk to them individually about what, like I just mentioned that to I email Rachel about that. I mean, I could contact the charities individually, but I might just run it by her, is to kind of give like a free IT consult to one charity per week.
Yeah.
And I could use that as a kind of one, to be genuinely helpful, hopefully. Two, to like hear about their needs and their things. And three, even if they don't want to update it, I could like personally say, oh, well, we've got this thing, let's update your details and let's create you an account or what have you. Yeah. So,
you sort of want some champions to do that, don't you? To, local people who can go and,
That's right. That's right. And I think, Rachel has tried to like demo the system occasionally to groups of people, but I think the difficulty is partly it's just like she has her laptop and then she goes somewhere and then she isn't necessarily connected to the network. Yeah. And then or she goes to an event and she's not. So she's done a lot of, I think, telling people about it verbally. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a huge difference between telling people about something verbally, which is great, and they can say, wow, that's wonderful. But then they, like, later on, they just don't have the free time to go and create the account or remember, what was the URL? I don't remember, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe that we need some like success stories reported on there. So, of where the site has helped an organization get volunteers, for example, or where it's helped a volunteer find an organization they can help.
Yes. And I think you're right. The difficulty there is partly that the whole thing, the actual charity, the matching the volunteer with the charity, it all happens kind of off-site, right. as it were, on the Do It system, and we don't have that information. I mean, I think, that Volunteers in Harrow run their own site, and they have their kind of like, they have their upcoming events, and they also, I mean, they have like Twitter, and they kind of do newsy things. I mean, hopefully, like with the new embedded map thing, we might kind of connect. Well, that's, what's that say? Sign up today. Where does that take us to? Want to volunteer in Harrow. So they've got like a little form. Oh, that's a. Let's got to sign up for a mailing list. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's an extent to which, what Volunteer Action Harrow is doing here and their stuff, you can sort of see their focus is, one of the big things that they supply to all of the different organizations in Harrow is if they want to carry out this kind of DBS check, then they'll do that. Right. But then they also run training events and try and help volunteers and this, that, and the other. But so, yeah. But so I've sent them the iframe snippet, or what have you, and we'll see if they get that in there. I think that could be a big step forward. But.
Yeah, excellent.
But so the thing I was going to go back to where it originally started on with organizations is that, now kind of Rachel's sort of like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're just not going to get people. We're not going to get that many people updating their data. And so we've now switched it so that the front page is the volunteers. So it lands on the volunteers. And I think, obviously you can go to these others, you go to Do It, you can go to Reach Skills, but that we're pulling in data from multiple sources to provide, like, here are all the volunteering opportunities in Harrow. That's actually, potentially for a person searching for a volunteer position in Harrow, that's actually potentially useful. So I mean, there's a user group then of the people who are doing volunteering, and I think maybe if I go out to lots of individual charities, I might meet more of those people and hear more about their needs. But
I guess the problem is if that data is out of date, and it could have the opposite effect of doing good.
You mean the volunteer data?
Yeah.
Yes, although I think in that regard, we're actually in quite a good position in that we're pulling it, like the stuff, I don't know if you know how it works, but every day we have a script that goes out and pulls the latest data off Do It,
Okay.
the old data. And Do It have a lot of functionality, like for automatically expiring old stuff.
Right. Okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So I think you're absolutely. I mean, in fact, the ones that we've got on with like the volunteer opportunities that are here that are actually in our database, that were created in our database, I don't know that any of the organizations who have logins have come into here and created the ad on our system. Like, I think they had like some volunteer, like when we originally set it up, I don't know if they had somewhere like a list of, some volunteer opportunities, and they were added to here, and then they haven't particularly, updated.
Mm-hmm.
So you're absolutely right. I mean, that's and there's, So I mean, and there's potentially more integration with Do It coming, and I think we don't have so much resources. So I mean, to the extent that we can take advantage of those other people's stuff, then that's kind of cool. But yeah. So in that context, I mean, the priorities. I mean, the big one was that embedded thing, which you've completed, and that leaves us with pretty much all of the priorities here are related to the event stuff.
Yep.
Although I think that the difficulty is, as you saw from researching, trying to have like a sort of automated process for local events, it runs the big risk of falling foul of the same issue that we have for the data in the organizations.
Yeah.
Right. That it will, I mean, yeah. So I think the event stuff is great for people to work on and put that in place. I mean, what I don't know is how serious, like, so they do have, in their existing site, they have, these sorts of events. And this is, I don't know what framework are they in, WordPress or something here. I mean, we could work with them to ensure that they have an RSS feed or what have you. I mean, there's clearly some sort of structure under there, and make it appear in this system. I don't know that like having an events tab and events on there is going to magically make this, a place that lots of people come to for information.
What about? To be honest, I don't know if it does this, but what about allowing volunteers to register their availability and their interests?
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, and in fact,
that might bring the event, the people who are creating the events, it might bring them to the site to look for potential volunteers.
Yes. I mean, and I think that that's what, like, we did have some money back in the day from the guy who was running the volunteer center for Harrow for a long time, and he wanted all of that in here, and we ended up not providing that. I mean, it was a very small amount of money, relatively speaking. He would always have loved to seen that in here. I mean, the interesting thing is, though, given, I think that would be great. I think probably in order to make headway, it needs to be closely integrated with Do It. And right. I like, Do It is getting, well, no, it's a good idea, and I would like to see it happen. And I think the key thing is we need, like, for the project generally, we need to make sure that there's this connection between, the real people in Harrow and what their issues. I mean, it seems to me partly, though, is like what would make it really sticky is if you actually had a forum for the people involved in these different organizations to communicate with each other.
Make it more social, and
And then even if you had that dialogue, then out of that dialogue come the features, and people can kind of say what they want. And I try to encourage, some like maybe let's create a Slack instance, but then the charity, they're kind of, I don't know, there are groups in central London, like I'm going to go to these charity events coming up, like who are very digital. They've got there's like hundreds of people in like Slack instances all talking about digital charities. But we'll see. I mean, Harrow is a kind of a funny area, but so what I was going to say was, though, the thing that we were talking about, which is this being able to, which also we might be pairing on tomorrow,
yes.
Is this automating the organization data to be up to date, and I think that would make this system automatically a lot more useful for our client.
Yeah.
Right? Because rather than going to, because they'll basically get a map view on the latest data from the Charity Commission, which they don't get from the Charity Commission.
Yeah, and I think if we do it as an API, like we've discussed, I think it will simplify this. It'll allow us to simplify the local support site as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and we can potentially throw out a lot of code that's all about processing CSV.
Yeah.
Stuff and this, that, and the other. Yeah, indeed. So we have got then now. Oh gosh, if I write, here we go. Commission. Yeah, so we've got this chore here, which is grab latest data from. Oh, that's just do it. And then we've got there we go. The task here is like automate that process. So maybe we should have, I mean, with the two of us, we maybe can't complete the vote, but we should maybe at least start the vote on this, and you and I can have a bit of a chat about. Here, I'll just grab the vote. Go on.
So do this as a interim to get the data into the schema that we've got now and the site that we've got now, or to
go on,
or to just scrap that idea and do the separate API idea.
Well, I mean, this could include the API itself. I mean, I mean, I guess maybe we will want to split up. I guess I'll just put the vote in the channel. This is automating updates of org data from Charity Commission. There, that's in there. Yes. So we could kind of even, this might be a thing where a Google drawing is a handy thing to do. Do I have drawings? I do. So we have got, and I can make this so that you can edit it as well. If Google, maybe makes me slow. But so the Charity Commission has available at sort of a predictable endpoint a chunk of files that we can pull down. There are some Python scripts that will process that data into a certain form, right?
Yep.
As in pull it out into something other, because it comes out in some like Excel. Oh, really, Google? Okay, yeah, because you want that first. This is like grab data from Charity Commission. I don't know what it is. Why does everything have a title? Can't we just be like freeform? Here we go. Advanced, change, name of the link, can edit, save, done, and then if I just copy it, I'll paste that into the channel.
Yep,
in case you want to draw anything in there. But so there's kind of like, we would need a script to grab data, and then there is like a process to run Python scripts, and then so that data, like we're talking about, I mean, it could be that's then like exposed data over API, and like this stuff all over here, this is like potentially a separate project, right?
Yeah.
Order send backward. No, send even further backwards. Send back like that. And then we have local support where we could, as like what we're doing with Do It, but we've already got kind of like a series of services in local support, which is, you know, script that grabs data from Do It. We've got another script that grabs it from Reach Skills. It's very similar.
Right.
And then we just have another script that grabs from our API.
Yep.
And that sensibly keeps the projects isolated from each other. What do we? So this would be called Charity Commission API. I mean, it's not the Charity Commission API, but I know what we call it. I mean, the funny thing is I don't know if I showed you the. Go on.
Yeah, you did say that there was another party doing it, but it wasn't a free service.
Well, or it wasn't an open source service. And the funny thing is, it's kind of free, but it doesn't have like. Does it have? Did I look at this? Yeah, like so you can actually get this data, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't give me all the charities in Harrow. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
And because it's not open source, we can't like. I mean, I just find it so frustrating that this is like public data. Public money is spent on making this data available. You know, I mean, fair enough. These guys, they're putting in their free time, and then they're getting paid for it to pull this down. But they've written private code, which they've got is still running. But then it means, okay, well, that's great that they've built this thing, and then we can't expand on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we can do a search for Harrow, and we get, but then some of these things are not in Harrow, and this is the basic issue that we had 4 years ago was we need, you know, we need the entire data dump, and then we need to like strip out the, you know, which are in the Harrow postcodes.
Yep.
And then that created the CSV files that we originally loaded into the system. So, and these guys, I mean, conceivably, like this site doesn't seem to have changed much in the last 3 years. Conceivably,
they haven't updated the data, reloaded the data.
Well, we are getting things, I think, like newest charity. See here.
Oh yeah, 2010. Yeah.
They are getting, but they might be. This might be just using it. It might be scraping the Charity Commission site. I don't know if they're using the Charity Commission data downloads.
Right.
It certainly would be a sensible thing. KindLink definitely are, and they're a private company wrapping all of that stuff. Now I've lost the. Oh, here's the diagram. But yeah, so I mean, you know, I think there's a, to the extent that we can create this is kind of a fairly trivial operation. I mean, there's just some tricky logic, or we've got to be careful with the logic of, okay, we've got some new data that's come over the wire, right? We kind of need to, like, we end up with multiple directions from which an organization's data could be updated, right? So you could have still somebody coming into the interface and updating the here and editing it, versus. So I think we kind of need versioning for the organizations so that it's like we probably there should be like whatever default should be, but you know, if the person says, oh no, that's actually wrong from the Charity Commission, I want it to be this, they should be able to override it, or at least we don't want to blow away their data. Maybe I'm being too cautious there because hardly anybody actually updates their data, but
I know what you're saying.
But that's, I think it's not technically hard. It's just a question of choosing the right. We've got the same thing like for Do It. Like we have, you know, we actually sort of blow away all of the Do It opportunities and grab them fresh in order to make sure that we're staying up to be with the latest Do It stuff. So there's logic in that script. But if we're thinking about the technical complexity of this thing, this doesn't seem hard.
No.
this seems pretty, like, one can have a curl script. I mean, I guess with this one, we could be hosting this on, I guess sensibly we'll host it on Azure in order to save us money. We could have an Ubuntu, we can even do it in Doku processes, but anyway, like a curl script will grab that data and put it on the thing.
Yep.
Cron job to run the Python scripts, and then basically, I guess if we want to allow these guys to grab that data via, like postcodes or what have you, sensibly the output of this data would go into a database that we've got like an API on top of.
Yeah, because I think we'd be missing the point if we use the Python scripts to pull out all the Harrow area charities. Because at the moment, although the only consumer would be Harrow,
yes,
the local support, in the future there might be other projects that would want to consume it and have a wider area in terms of charities.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, and I think it would be, I think it would be great to be able to support other people, and then we'd have it set up with like API keys, and if people wanted to use it, then we would like maybe rate limit them and this, that, and the other. And if they wanted, we could even put like, we could start charging them for it if they wanted to have like higher levels of access, because it's going to cost something on the back end to run it. But so like what the particular thing I'm thinking is like, so that they're saying here that they've included a table definition SQL file. It makes me think like, I mean, almost rather than writing custom stuff from scratch to cover this, is that like, is there almost a way to like have a system that like generates the API just off the table definitions? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, if it's MySQL, I've got some stuff that I've done in PHP that wouldn't take a huge amount of work to change what I've already written,
right,
to work with a different different SQL table layout. But yeah, like you say, there's probably.
Well, I'm just imagining like if we've got like a SQL, like this kind of thing, add a REST API to any SQL database in minutes. Like it would seem like in principle, I mean, this we don't want to use somebody else's service, but it almost feels, I mean, like with Rails, you can kind of with Rails, I believe you can. I'm not saying we should necessarily use Rails, but with Rails you can run it and kind of like import a legacy schema, and then have a complete. I guess you wouldn't necessarily have search over it, but it then wouldn't be difficult to.
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe something worth investigating.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's also a thing for like kind of generating like API documentation automatically as well. Especially how I started into Rails. How I started using Rails was anyway, and clearly people are continuing to do it. I don't know if that's quite what I want. Anyway, well, so we've kind of discussed, we've sort of kicked it about a bit. Is there any other things on your mind about these different bits and pieces?
Not with regards to this, no, I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you've got something, kind of good to go in PHP and MySQL and so on, then, in some ways, path of least resistance, as long as that's, open source stack here, I'm like, woohoo. I think it would be really
I've written an API for location counts. We haven't released it yet. And it's got everything that you've talked about, user sign up, using API keys, we can rate limit and all of that. And cool. And I'm just thinking that a lot of that, because it's built modular, we'd only actually have to create the models to represent the new schema, so they wouldn't, it's not a huge amount of work, I don't think.
Yeah, well, and so, but that thing that you've got there, is that something that you were planning to open source as part of Location Counts, or something that you were interested to open source in a different form? Does that?
No, so we were approached by a company who were in theory going to be a competitor to Zoopla and Rightmove, and they wanted our data.
Oh yeah.
But we didn't have a public API, so we built it. But then this project fell through. The idea was it was going to make us some money.
Right.
We were going to, charge them to
access the API.
Access the API, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's sat there doing nothing at the moment. So.
Oh right. Yeah. Well, maybe I think now your Location Counts, is that like a for-profit company?
It is really, yes. We don't make any profit, but
right. It's it's something that I think yeah, what I would like to see is a mechanism whereby if this became something that people actually wanted to use and were starting to pay for, that then through the Agile Ventures framework you could get compensated for, would be the ideal.
Oh, yeah, basically the stuff I've done is all my own work. It's all written in Laravel.
Right.
It's all open source, and it's not in any way linked to Location Counts.
Oh, okay.
It's it could be branded as anything really.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think it's it's of course it's all pipe dreams, isn't it? About build it and they will come, and build it and often they don't come. But yeah. Well, I think if you've got something that you're I guess it all comes down to like where you may feel more excited about exploring a different tech stack, or you may feel more excited about getting this up and getting it running in something that Anyway, we can discuss further tomorrow in our session, assuming we have it, or early next week, whenever we.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Yeah, I think I'm sort of in between both. I like the idea of using it to learn a new stack, whether that be Ruby Rails or something else. But it'd be nice to get this up and running. So it's it's a hard one, really.
Well, and it's I guess maybe the thing we can enumerate like what the different options are and the pros and cons. That's often a good thing to do.
Yeah,
isn't it for that? Yeah. So I don't know if we necessarily want to vote on this. It's kind of an epic rather than a single story. There's clearly two different chunks of it, but we can maybe leave that in the channel there and come back to it tomorrow. Cool. As it happened, go on.
Yeah, there was a few others that I thought we could vote on because I think they're going to be easy fixes.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to bring up Pivotal. The ones that I added in the week, so they're still in the icebox.
Oh, improve, well, and we can now with the new thing. We can vote on multiple things at the same time.
Woohoo! Yeah. So I did the vote for the improved one, but I think the mixed content warning and the Google Maps API warning, I think they'll just be quick fixes that are nice.
Do you want to start votes? Did we finish the vote for the previous one that you started?
No, I believe only yourself and I have voted, so we only really got two. So
no, okay. So and unfortunately, it's funny because we had so many people last week, and then just the two of us today. It's difficult because what I would really love is like for the new people getting involved, that they would get involved. In principle, that was the ideal world would be that the async voting thing. They would, but I think people are kind of so scared. Oh no, it's funny. We have this extreme. Some people are like, bull in the china shop. Other people are kind of like, oh, I won't touch a button because they're so scared about It's difficult to know what to do, really.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do is I'll probably leave it a couple of days, wait for these two to get voted on, and maybe when there's a little bit more activity in there, and I'll just, present those two as well.
Well, and what I had a sort of mental note for myself to do is to try and make sure that in the what's it called? In the normal scrums is actually we recently in the normal scrums we've had a fair amount of time at the end of them. What I should start doing if nobody's bringing up other stuff and there aren't any like blockers is say, hey, let's all go to this channel and vote on stuff.
Yeah, that'd be useful. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But so the last thing I was going to say was, interestingly, I've just got an email from the client who's introducing us to a consultancy doing a piece of work between the non-profit sector and the council. And one of the many things that came up is the larger number of groups, and then neither the sector nor the council know how many groups. Right, and so this is, I think, the client is showing. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, so there's like more stuff going on there. That's. But so there, maybe this is another. Anyway, that's all random. So I think we'll leave it there. Great to see you, Brent. And I guess we'll catch up tomorrow or not, depending on how it goes.
Yeah, I'll let you know, and I should be okay. It's just not guaranteed. So
no problem either way. All right, great stuff. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Cheers then. Thanks, Sam.
Take
Bye.
care.